This is gonna be a story time while I take my makeup off about how I was the crazy ex. So my boyfriend at the time, we were on and off, and he kicked me out and told me to pack my stuff and I had to be out that night. I definitely packed my stuff for sure, packed my stuff and moved it to a different closet in his house that he never opens. So I started sleeping in his car, but he kept finding me there every morning when he had to go to work. So I decided that I was going to continue sleeping in his car and I was going to wake up a little earlier before he had to go to work. And I knocked on his door and I told him that I needed to get some stuff that I forgot. I decided that I was going to take my sweet time up until the time he had to go to work so I could have the house all to myself. I slept in that house for multiple days without this man knowing. Is he ever going to find out? I don't know. Listen, Linda, I honestly did what I had to do and I do it again. Well, one day I remember him coming home and I kept hearing a girl's voice. This time when he came home, it was kind of unexpected, so I had to run under his bed. I kept hearing this girl's voice all the way from downstairs until he came upstairs. And so once he sat down on the bed, I jumped out from out that mother and I jumped on his ass. But I didn't see no girl. Apparently he was just on the phone. He dragged me out the house, told me I was crazy, said he was gonna call the cops if he saw me there again. But all is good. This was like 5 years ago. Me and this man are married now. He is now my baby daddy. And we got 3 kids. This is gonna be a story time of how I almost drowned someone's baby. Y'all, I cannot sleep at night because of this. I cannot believe that I did this to someone's child. But let me go ahead and explain myself. So I was babysitting for this one rich ass family. What's so amazing about it was the fact that the parents were never home. At the same time, I was just a senior in high school. I didn't have much to do after school either. I didn't have hobbies. I didn't play a sport. So I had all the time in the world to babysit for their kid and house sit for them. This baby was only 1 year old. Since the baby was so young, I had to keep eyes on it at all times. They had this big pool area and they said that if I ever wanted to go swimming, I could, and there was a floaty for the baby. One day while I was house sitting and babysitting for them, I went in the pool and I put the baby on the floaty thing. Somehow I forgot that baby existed. I felt something in the bottom of my feet at the pool. It was like slippery, so I kicked it out the way because I thought it was a toy. And then when I turn around me, I see that the baby is not on the floaty. I look down and I see this tiny human sunk in the water, like for part 2. This is part 2 of how I almost drowned someone's baby. But when this was happening, I was on my phone, so I was distracted. I looked down in the pool and I see that the baby is drowning. I don't really know how to explain the way that my heart skipped a beat at this exact moment. Like, my heart was beating regularly and then all of a sudden it skipped 2 beats at a time. My ass was in my forehead. Immediately dived down into the pool, took out the baby, but the baby was suffocating. Now listen, I never did CPR, but God blessed me with those skills in that very moment. I was able to keep myself calm and did CPR on the baby and was able to get it to breathe again. I did not tell nobody shit about this. I didn't tell the parents. The baby is fine. I really should have told the parents, because what if it did cause a health issue? But from what I've seen, the baby's fine. Yeah, I didn't tell them what happened, but I quit babysitting because I felt guilty. They haven't said anything about their baby dysfunctioning, so the baby is fine. Just because of this, I pulled myself out of babysitting and I'll never babysit ever again because I'm clearly not responsible enough. This is a story time about the time I dated the school shooter. This might be a long story, so please bear with me. Before you form any opinions on anyone in the story, please wait all the way until the end. Trust me, you're gonna want to listen to this story time. There was this boy who went to my school and he was really shy and he got bullied a lot. He got bullied a lot because he was a lot more feminine than other guys. And I'm just the type of person to give people the benefit of the doubt, so I went ahead and started talking to him more to see the type of person that he actually was. He didn't sit with anybody during lunch, so one day I went up to him and I sat down right next to him and I started talking to him. Immediately, I loved this boy, everything about him. He was extremely sweet and considerate and understanding, and I knew that if other people took the time to get to know him, they would like him too. So we exchanged numbers and we started to FaceTime a lot. As we started to FaceTime more, I started to notice things that were a little off about him. Every single conversation that we had, he would always have to bring up about how much he hated this one boy in his tech class and how he would shoot up the school just to get rid of him, like for part 2. This is part 2 about how I dated the school shooter. So let me backtrack a little bit from part 1. We exchanged numbers, we started to make plans to hang out outside of school, and we just started talking more outside of school, and eventually we started dating. He never really talked about this guy in his tech class until we started dating. Keep that in mind. For some reason, that guy in his tech class really bothered him. Like I said, he started talking about how he would shoot up the school just to get rid of this guy. At first, I thought it was just a joke and he was just saying that, until he kept saying it. He started being so serious about it and he started planning it out and exactly what he would do when he did it. That started to scare me, and so I decided that I was going to record one of these conversations, just in case. During that conversation, he said he planned to shoot up the school the next day. He said, in these exact words, "Fuck it, you know what? I'm just gonna do it tomorrow." Then he tells me to not come to school the next day. That's when I know that he was actually being serious. Immediately after, I started writing up an email to the school, like for part 3. This is gonna be part 3 of the time I dated the school shooter. So his exact plan was to use this new gun that his dad had just recently bought, and his exact goal was to get rid of that guy in his tech class, and his tech class was in the beginning of the school day. So after I wrote that email to the school about his plan and inserted the recording that I secretly took of him admitting to it, I realized that I had sent that email at around 12:05 a.m. Most of the time, the teachers don't ever email you back unless the school day has already started. That morning, for some reason, everything in my gut was telling me I sent the email too late. They're not going to open it in time. They're not going to see it in time. My mom just thought that I was sick that day, so I told her that I was going to take a walk around the neighborhood. And I totally forgot to mention that he lived in my neighborhood. I told my mom I was going on a walk, but I was actually going to his house to tell his parents. By the time I got there, his mom told me that the dad is driving him to school. I told her his plan, let her listen to the recording. So she checked where the dad put the gun and it was not there. She called the dad to tell him to check his bag. The dad said he had already dropped him off at school and he was halfway home. His tech class was first period, like for part 4. This is going to be part 4 of the time I dated the school shooter. So let me do a little recap. So like I said, I ran to his house that morning to try to tell his parents his plan about shooting up the school, and I showed them the recording for proof. I was only able to tell the mom his plan because the dad had already taken him to school. She checked where this new gun he was planning on using was supposed to be and it wasn't there. Then when she called the dad to tell him to check their son's bag, the dad said 1, the gun should still be there because he hadn't touched it since he put it away, and 2, he had already dropped him off at school and he was halfway home. I didn't even tell my mama where I was going. I hopped in the car with my boyfriend's mom and we zoomed. The dad had taken a U-turn and he was speeding towards the school too. At this point, first period was about to start in 5 minutes. It was us against time. We were passing cars, running red lights. When we got to the school, the mom barely parked the car. The dad was already in there, I'm pretty sure. But as we were running inside, the dad was coming out with my boyfriend. This is what happened after, like for part 5. This is going to be part 5 about the time I dated the school shooter. Like I said, my boyfriend's parents and I sped to the school and got there in time to stop him from carrying out his plan of shooting the school. I'm guessing the dad told them that there was like an emergency dentist appointment or something. Once they got in the car, the dad made my boyfriend open his bag, and there was the gun. Child, the way my heart. You hear that? That's how fast my heart was beating at the time. It was so hard to believe that he actually brought that gun to school, like he was actually going to carry out that plan. But from what I've seen, he was just so sweet and just does not seem like that type of guy at all. Mind you, his family was a very respected family in our neighborhood. They were super sweet. Everybody loved them. They just knew that the son was antisocial. After all this happened, I did not tell anybody about this. Like, I'm a real bitch. I did not tell my best friends. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell nobody. Some time had passed and I hadn't talked to him. He wasn't coming to school and I was actually blocked on all socials. Even his parents blocked me. Went to his house multiple times, knocked on the door, nobody answered. Eventually someone told me that they moved, but I still had some unfinished business, like for part 6. So this is gonna be me finishing the unfinished business. Like I said, him and his family moved. They didn't tell anybody anything. They just packed their stuff and they left. Everyone in the neighborhood was so confused. But I kept my mouth shut. Like I said, I'm a real bitch. I needed to find the answers as to why. Why did he want to get rid of that tech guy so bad? Well. So I went to tech first period just to see who was all in the classroom. I didn't actually go in the classroom. I was just standing outside the classroom. Based on where my ex was saying that he sat in the room, I figured out who the tech guy was. As soon as the bell rang for first period to be over, I ran to that tech class. I stopped that guy that my boyfriend was talking about. I told him everything. And that is when he admitted to me that one day, they were hanging out. Mind you, this boy is a senior. My ex was a sophomore. They hooked up, but my ex was ashamed of what he did, so he threatened to say that he was taken advantage of. That boy said, well, I'm going to tell people the truth then if you're going to do that. So basically, my ex was embarrassed of his sexuality. After we started dating, he started to get super ashamed of what he did. And that's why he decided to shoot up the school. This is a story time of why I don't eat at other people's house no more. Me and my best friend, we were like 11 or 12 at the time, and we were having a sleepover at her house. We had hung out outside of school many times before. This would just be the first time I went over to her house. My mom drops me off and just lets me walk inside. When I went up to the door, my best friend answered and she was like, hey, can you grab a shoe? Immediately, I could tell that the house wasn't very clean, but I knew it wasn't her fault. It's not because she asked me to grab a shoe. I could see behind her and could tell that the house was just really messy. It really did look like an episode of Hoarders, but I grabbed a shoe and I helped her look for that fly. So it was me, my bestie, and her grandma looking for this big ass bug. We got a little tired, so we sat down to eat something and her grandma made us a snack. I was a little scared to eat, not gonna lie, but I didn't want to make my best friend feel bad, so I went ahead and ate my food. Well, I was only able to eat some of it because we had left the basement door open and we saw the bug fly down there. So we stopped eating, ran down to the basement, and we saw the bug fly behind this box. We moved this box, and I swear 100 families of spiders and their ancestors started spewing out, like for part 2. This is going to be part 2 of why I don't eat at other people's house no more. Like I said, so many spiders started spewing out from behind this box. I genuinely thought that these spiders were going to eat all of us alive. It was not a fun situation. We did not run fast enough. These spiders started crawling all over us. I think I saw a lighter somewhere and considered setting myself on fire. I want you guys to imagine like my whole entire body covered up with spiders. That's what it felt like, but there was only like 5 or 6 on me. The grandma gets a blanket and starts whipping us with it. She's like trying to dust the spiders off. I see my best friend start stripping. I was a little about that, but I was like, fuck it. Anything to get these spiders off. Once we felt like we were good, we ran upstairs. My best friend started crying to me and apologizing and saying how much she hates her life and how she's so embarrassed. But I told her that all is good and this doesn't change the way that I see her at all. We have our little moment and then we sit down to eat again. And you know, I'm going in on my little SpaghettiOs. But all of a sudden, it starts getting crunchy. I ignore it and I get down to the bottom of the bowl. When I look down, there is a half-eaten spider in the bottom of the bowl, like for part 3. This is going to be part 3 of why I don't eat at other people's house anymore. So like I said, I was munching and grunching on some SpaghettiOs. It's getting crunchy and I'm like, what's this crunch? Where's all this crunch coming from? I was like, bruh, it's probably some expired SpaghettiOs, but let me finish this bowl so my friend don't feel bad. When I got to the end and there was only some soup left, I saw a half-eaten spider. The same spiders that we had seen downstairs. My body? It started vibrating. I was shaking. I seized out. I think I passed out. This was not a good situation. I did have a phobia of spiders. I told my best friend, listen, babes, I love you. You know I love you. But this cannot go on no longer. I'm gonna have to go home. I felt like such a terrible friend, but I did call my mom. And she came to get me and she took me home. I told her what happened and she was upset with my friend's grandma. From then on, we only had sleepovers at my house. And ever since my family found out about her living situation, we would go over there sometimes to help them clean. We would bring food and games. I'm grown now, but me and this girl ended up falling out because of some drama.
I've heard it all before. I know you've been knocking on my door, that's right. Every time I close my eyes, I seem to make the same mistake. It goes like, ooh, ooh. Oh, I was fine until you woke me up, woke me up. That melody, it kinda messed me up, messed me up. Oh, I was fine until I heard the song. It went like, ooh, I'm glad you stuck in my head. My mind, alright. I guess you take your sweet time. You take whatever you please. You take whatever you need. Like ooh, ooh. Oh, I was fine until you woke me up, woke me up. That melody, it kinda messed me up, messed me up. Oh, I was fine until I heard the song. It went like ooh, I'm glad you stuck in my head. I'm glad you stuck in my head. Like, ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm glad you stuck in my head. All the time.
That babysitter was my dad's ex-wife. Well, anyways, this is what my mom did to my stepdad's ex-wife after we went to the hospital. This is part 3 of my babysitting horror story. So like I said, I finally told my parents about what the babysitter had been doing to me and my baby sister. I was so confused as to why my mom started going off on my dad right away after I told her. But 10 years later, I'm finally finding out that my babysitter was my stepdad's ex-wife. My mom told me that she had been really iffy about letting my stepdad's ex-wife babysit me and my little sister, but she only agreed with it to save money. So my mom told my dad to get out of the driver's seat. She got into the driver's seat and she started driving. I wasn't exactly sure where we were going and my dad didn't know either, but we ended up at the babysitter's house. Luckily for her, she wasn't home because my mom would have dropped her. Shit, she might have even got a murder charge that day. But my mom told me to get a rock and to just start chucking them at her windows. So that's what I did. There, me and my mom were chucking rocks at my babysitter's window. And my dad was watching us holding my baby sister. My mom didn't take her to court or anything. I'm not exactly sure why. Probably something to do with my dad. But my mom made my dad cut contact with her completely and they fired her. This is why Bring Your Pet to School Day is banned from my school. I just want everyone to know that this was bound to happen. The kids at my school are super irresponsible. I don't know why the teachers thought this was a good idea. I was one of those really irresponsible kids, and I didn't pay attention to which pets were allowed to be brought to the school. They weren't allowed to stink, they had to be a certain size, and you weren't supposed to bring them on the bus. If you were bringing a pet, you had to be a car rider. Well, I might have broken some of these rules. So I had a pet milk snake. It was about 3 feet in size, and I brought it to school without telling my parents because you had to get a parent signature form. And no, I was not a car rider. I brought it on the bus. I was carrying it in my backpack, and my backpack was all the way zipped up, so there was no way for it to get out. So I got on the bus, and then like 5 minutes later, my bus buddy got on the bus. Asked him, "Did you bring your pet to school?" He goes, "No, I'm on the bus, aren't I?" I was like, "Okay, I'm on the bus and I brought mine." He tells me we weren't allowed, and then he has to see it. When I opened my bag to show him, it wasn't there. Then I hear my bus driver scream, and she swerves the bus. This is part 2 of why Bring Your Pet to School Day is banned from my school. So like I said, I'm on the bus and I open my bag to show my friend my pet snake. But when I open my bag, it wasn't there. And then I hear the bus driver scream, and she swerves the bus. He yells that there's a snake on the bus, which causes panic. Kids start crying. Some try to jump out the bus window. Like, it was literal chaos. The bus driver almost crashed the whole bus. But she was able to steady it out. But nobody knew where this snake was. I honestly just try to act like I didn't know what was going on. Like, what snake? Never heard of her. Is that some type of drink? Anyways, so luckily, I looked across the seat from me. The seat in front of them, under it was the snake. My friend was sitting on the outside of the bus seat, so I told him to grab it. Try to get him to grab it before anybody sees it, but he didn't, so I just launched over there and I grabbed it, put it in my bag, and continued to act like nothing happened. Okay, so I'm running out of time, so I'm going to zoom past a little bit, but I'll come back on the next part. My school lets us carry our backpacks anywhere we want, so I had the snake in my backpack all day. But 2 periods before chemistry, I decided to let it loose so I could skip the class. Okay, so this is part 4 of why Bring Your Pet to School Day is banned from my school. So like I said, Jesus Christ, I almost died. So like I said, I went down to the office to claim my snake. I obviously got into a lot of trouble for that. They called my parents. My parents came down to the school. So I got suspended. My parents grounded me for months and months and months. I was not allowed to leave my house. I couldn't go out to see my friends. But I was only suspended for like a week. And when I went back to school, everybody knew that it was me who brought that snake to school. And so the person who sat down on the toilet seat and found the snake knew that it was me too. And that person didn't say anything to me, but I did get word that that person was very pissed because that snake went straight up there, you know. So after that, they just didn't allow kids to bring their pets to school anymore, which is reasonable. I kind of ruined it for everybody else, but I don't really care because it's not that serious. But people can't just hate on me because there was this other kid who brought a spider and it got loose in class. But they were able to find it really quickly, so it didn't escape the classroom or anything. But I did what I had to do. So